A couple of days ago, Shannon Sharp hosted Johnny Manziel on his podcast, and when it dropped, it was a 2-hour episode that I found myself absolutely enthralled by from start to finish. This paired with the Netflix documentary that came out a couple months ago, I've been thoroughly reminded of the impact that this guy had on college football. Along with this reminder, my perspective has completely changed from when all this happened to where we are now. So in this video, I just give my thoughts on his whole situation and reflect on what he did and the impact he left. So let's get into it. So I think the best place to start is where my perspective changed to once I got the appropriate context. When Johnny Manziel was at Texas A&M, I was just in 3rd or 4th grade, so my view of Johnny came from what I saw on TV and my parents' opinions of him. And being an Alabama fan, I'm kind of surprised I didn't comprehend the level of greatness he was displaying every week, because although I was only 9 or 10, I was able to appreciate a good football player when I saw one. Guys like RG3 and DeAnthony Thomas were super entertaining players to watch, and I was able to recognize their talent, but for some reason, not Johnny's. But from what I was able to gather, came after that dude came into Bryant-Denny Stadium and shocked the entire country. My mom and sister actually went to this game, and I remember being very jealous that I wasn't there until the end. When he did that, I naturally took a disliking to this guy. For some reason, I didn't view him as a great player, but rather someone who just got lucky against us. I also looked at him as spoiled and entitled, and overall just did not want to see him succeed on the field. Again, I was just a kid, but college football was like the only thing I cared about, so I should have looked past what he did against my team. But in the present day, I've matured and gained context and insight that was much needed, and this dude's story is unbelievable to think about. If we take a look at his game-by-game stats from that Heisman year, I am absolutely floored at what I'm looking at. This guy was a creative player, man, and there's just nothing more to say. In that 4th game of the year is when I'm guessing he started to turn heads, because that stat line is straight from a video game. 453 passing yards, 104 rushing, and 4 touchdowns against an SEC opponent as a 20-year-old just shouldn't be possible. And that's another thing. This dude was not just a good football player, not just a part of Texas A&M. This guy was Texas A&M. He was the university. Mans could not even consume alcohol legally and was the identity of one of the biggest universities and best football programs in the country. They touched on this in the podcast that I mentioned in the beginning, but it's a shame that NIL was not in place during that time, because this guy would have been the richest player in the country by far. All of this was emphasized when he became the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy. So to kind of paint a picture of the situation that he was in and the life that he was living, I want to point out that this dude came into college with some, but not a huge amount of expectations. A lot of people view your first year as a development year to get familiar with the offense and the players around you. And for any normal freshman, albeit a redshirt freshman, but still a freshman, this likely would have been the reality. But this man was anything but a normal freshman. At 20 years old, he took a program that, mind you, had just joined the SEC and had a lot of question marks as to whether they'd be able to compete or not. He took that program to heights I'm sure they didn't see possible in terms of success for the team and the amount of money they got from him. When Texas A&M took that guy from Kerrville, I guarantee that even in their wildest expectations, they did not imagine what would eventually become reality. On top of all that, he won the most prestigious award in the entire sport and became the youngest player to ever do it. The last thing I'll talk about pertaining to his college days is the fact that he did all of this. Heisman, taking down Alabama in Bryant-Denny, putting up over 500 yards of offense multiple times, all of this. He did all of it while getting obliterated every other weeknight. In both the documentary and the podcast, Johnny mentioned he viewed himself as a partier who happened to be good at football. I need you guys to hear me when I say that this is the hardest part out of all of this to comprehend. As we know, for college athletes, college football is not just the sport you're a part of, it's your life. From sunrise to sunset, it's your life, and it's that way for a reason. The amount of dedication it takes to be a college athlete is something that I believe can't even be fathomed unless you are one. So the fact that this dude performed at the level he did as a 20-year-old in the SEC while simultaneously putting his body through hell every week is beyond wild. Of course, it begs the question of what he could have done if he had taken care of his body, but that's in the past now. But I don't know, man. For that guy to describe himself as a partier who happened to be good at football is truly unbelievable. So clearly one of the best college careers and Heisman seasons we'll ever see, but now we're going to move past his college days. Now, his time in the NFL was forgettable, as we know. He never really did anything of significance during his stint in Cleveland, and he expands why and what the factors were that had to do with that, so I won't really expand much on that. To sort of summarize it, it was just a tough time for this guy. He mentioned that when he got to the NFL is when the hard drug use started due to the mindset he was in, and it showed. Up to this point in his life, he had been able to pull off the magic of partying very often and still being able to perform on game days. So when that stopped working, he didn't have those habits of hard work to fall back on that he should have developed in college. Problem was that lifestyle he was accustomed to worked in college, it worked in high school, so there was no need to develop those habits of hard work during those times. So in short, his career just did not work out in the NFL. And along with that, his health was depleting daily during his time there. Fast forward to the present day, and I'm not sure what this guy did to get back on the right path. I'm sure it was a long, grueling journey, but he described himself in the podcast as being the happiest he's ever been, which is really good to hear. To see this guy go from extreme depression, being suicidal, and just not having any regard for his health and well-being to where he is today is just really encouraging. One thing I gathered from watching his conversation with Shannon Sharpe is that, to me at least, he comes off as a very likable guy with a good spirit and positive vibes. So I hope that he continues to live his best life and sustain that happiness that he has. A lot of people say that he had no right to be depressed because he was a rich NFL quarterback, which I just think is very tone deaf. Depression has nothing to do with the number you see in your checking account. It has to do with your circumstance, and by those means, he had every right to be depressed. Now, am I making an excuse for him? Absolutely not. He is responsible for all of his actions, and had he done things differently, his circumstances would have likely been better. But he knows that now, and it's in the past where it can't be changed. In a way, his failure was the best thing for him, because although in the moment it was horrible to deal with, it put him on the path that has ultimately led to him being the happiest he has ever been. In light of this whole situation, Johnny Manziel's life is extremely unique in many ways. The things he was able to do on the field and the success he attained at such a young age is unbelievable and left an impact that will be recognized for decades. It sounds like he's found peace, which is great, and I wish him nothing but the best. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and share it, as that helps the channel to grow. Besides that, until next time.